that's not even for this question. So listen, when we talk about the issue of marriage, let's confess, let's own up to that we, the Church of Jesus Christ, have surrendered the biblical understanding of marriage to a romanticized fantasy that is perpetuated by our culture. Now, if you want to talk about biblical marriage in our culture, hear me. The first place that biblical marriage has to be restored is in the church. We don't do cute. And the times that I'll get in more trouble with you, and you'll be madder at me, was when I tell you your daughter's not ready, your son's not ready. This guy doesn't have a clue what it is to be a husband. And that's when you'll get mad at me. You may even leave the church. But that's where I've come to. I've come to realize that part of this is my fault, part of this is our fault, because we surrendered the biblical understanding of marriage to the romanticized fantasy of our culture. We watch shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Who'll make it? Who won't? Who will get the rose? Are you kidding me? Look at what Paul does. Did you see it? What verse does he quote? It should be a little number in your margin there. You may come down and point it out to you. What verse does he quote? Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Why is that significant? Because it's the same verse Jesus quotes in Matthew chapter 19. Jesus is challenged about divorce, whether or not it is lawful to divorce. He quotes to them Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Why is that the verse they go to? Here's why that's important. Most of us go to our understanding of marriage from chapter 3 of Genesis. What's happened in chapter 3? The fall. Eve eats the apple. Ugh. And guys, we have blamed women since that, haven't we? She hadn't eaten that apple. Well, had it been Eve and Mike, the story would have gone like this. And the serpent talked to Eve, and Mike picked up a stick and beat the snake to death. Or Mike grabbed Eve and then ran out of the garden and told God, we're not going back in there, there's a snake. I don't know how, but it would have been a very, very different story. I know we love to slam the women here and blame Eves and all the Eves of the world and all the Eves that have ever lived, but guys, it is not our finest hour when you read the story. We're standing right next to her. I wouldn't push that if I were you. Most of us have gone to that passage in chapter 3 where this is the symbol of the fall, that the husband will rule over the wife and da-da-da-da-da-da. But Jesus doesn't. Paul doesn't. They go back to the chapter that celebrates the goodness of creation. And the climax of the creation story, the final dot that makes this story wonderful, is the story of Adam and Eve coming together, husband, wife, man, and woman, to take care of the garden. That was their mutual job, to take care of the garden. Adam was the steward. He gets that in verse 15 of chapter 2. Eve is to be his helper in doing that. But they had the same task. They had the same goal. Although it is significant to me that God would not give his own daughter away until Adam had a job. Let that be a lesson to you young ladies. When he leans over and says those 3 little words, you lean back and say 3 more. Get a job. So our understanding of marriage is understood in the goodness of creation. There is something about a godly man and a godly woman in a godly home that makes known the very presence of Christ himself. I tell you a great mystery, Paul says, but I'm talking about Christ and his church in relationship to your home. So this is where it starts. It starts with a man who has committed his life to follow Jesus Christ. And every day he is serious about that relationship. It is the relationship that defines him. As he follows Christ, Christ leads him to understand, I have called this person to walk with you on your journey. I have given her particular gifts. I've given her particular experiences that will encourage you and enhance your work. That will come to you in a time of serious prayer of seeking the Lord's will. It starts with a godly woman who has given her life fully to Christ, who is complete in Christ. She doesn't need him, right? We need each other. That's neurotic, people. That's sick. Jeannie does not need me. You know her. She'll do fine without me. All right? Amazingly well. She doesn't need me. I know that. She wants me. It's a lot more fun being wanted than needed. Okay, but she's complete in herself. She knows who she is in Christ. She is following Christ. And she's been gifted and wired to be a significant partner in my life and ministry. And God confirmed to her, as he did to me, this is the person I've been preparing for you. And we took it to the next level. The purpose of the coming together is the raising of godly children. The two will become one flesh. That literally happens in children. There's something about a godly man pouring into his son, pouring into his daughter, that a godly woman can't give. Okay? And one of the reasons we have such an epidemic of crime among young men is that we have absent fathers. And one of the roles of the church is to stand around, is to turn back around, find those young men, and get in their lives, to give them the male influence and the Christian father that they don't have. And there is something about a Christian woman pouring into the lives of her sons that the father can't do. When Craig was little, he loved that Jeannie was a nurse. And when he was sick, nobody but Jeannie could touch him. He wouldn't take a Tylenol from me. He marries a nurse. Chris loved that Jeannie was a girl. And everything he bought for her was freely. Girly girl. He married Deb, who was every bit a girly girl. We're sitting at dinner one time, all six of us at the table, and I look at Jeannie and I say, you do know the boys married the part of you that they love best. There's something about that Christian home where a Christian man loves a Christian woman that makes known the very presence of Christ himself. That when you go into that house, there's a difference, there's a depth, there's a mystery, there's something to it that you can't quite figure it out. You can't put your finger on, but you know, I just love who I am when I'm in this house. That's the mystery of the presence of Christ. It happens in a godly home.